Hi everyone. We'll just give it a couple of seconds, have everyone join in. Great. Hi everyone. I do want to welcome everyone to tonight's webinar, Desmos Maybe More Than You Think. Before we begin, we do ask that all of our participants keep their mics muted just so we avoid any disruptions through the session. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourselves or utilize the chat. Our presenter today, he's been teaching math since 1991 in Santa Ana classrooms. He's taught from 6th grade to AP Calculus. He has a master's in mathematics from CSUF, and he's an instructor for UCI's School of Education, teaching the math methods course for the single subject candidates. So today he's here to talk about Desmos, and I know we're running a little bit late, so I'm just going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Hi, glad to be here. Let me put in a link into chat. It's a set of Google Slides that'll kind of walk us through tonight. I'm not going to ever show it, but if you open it up, it'll have a lot of links that we will use at different times. And it's also what I'm talking through and thinking about as we're doing this. So if you go to slide 2, it'll have a quick listing of the agenda of what I thought would be useful to go through about Desmos. So we'll go through a quick overview of the components that exist, and then a short tour of the graphing calculator and the geometry tool, and then move on to some classroom activities, specifically some things about linear functions, and then a little bit with some geometry. And then if there's time, we'll have a little brief time at the end in the introduction to making your own activities. So that said, if you move on to slide 3, it's kind of useful to know where Desmos has come from and what it was originally, not too long ago, just a graphing calculator. Right now, four different calculators you can find. The links are on slide 3 if you want to click them and open them. These are the calculators that show up on CASP. So that's something to know. At the elementary level, it's the 4-function calculator that shows up. At the middle school level, it's the scientific calculator. And by the time you get to the high school, it's the graphing calculator. So it's a really useful thing if you're going to use a calculator with students to get students used to that. I know last year there was no CASP, and I think it's still up in the air for this year. But I'm reasonably confident that we will eventually get back to that. Then there's a relatively recent, just a couple years old, a geometry tool, which is similar. If any of you ever used GeoGebra or Geometer's Sketchpad, it's similar to that. So the standards at the middle grades and the high school make reference to learning to do things with patty paper and a ruler, a protractor, a compass, and geometry software. This is probably the friendliest and easiest of the geometry softwares to use. It's also, as an advantage, completely free and very easy to share some things with other people as you work on those. And then finally, one of the biggest, most useful things is that there's the ability to do classroom activities. Those make use of the other tools that are part of Desmos, the graphing calculator or the geometry tool, but they actually have students sign in. There's a teacher dashboard that people get to see what's going on, and so we'll take a look at those also. Moving on, if we go to slide 4, just some of the biggest strengths, I think, about Desmos and why it's really worthwhile to use it compared to certain other things. It's very user-friendly when you're writing expressions. A lot of the things, it anticipates what you're probably thinking. So if you do 3 divided by 4, it immediately pops it up to look like a fraction. It's reasonably easy to find exponents. Like if you've got an x and you want an x squared, the little caret above the 6, which is the way a lot of people would have typed if you didn't have an exponent, they just go Shift 6 to show a little up. Desmos understands that and then puts you up high to go ahead and put the exponent in. It works really well across almost any platform that you're working with, from a phone all the way to a pad, to a tablet, to a desktop. It's very friendly along those lines. It's free, a big bonus. Also, we'll try and get to it a little bit. It's really easy to share creations across Desmos, whether you're even just working on a particular thing on the graphing calculator. You can save that and share it with someone else. It's very friendly entry level. It's like what most of our good lessons really should be. It's got a very low floor, but a very high ceiling. You can do an amazing amount of stuff with it, but you don't have to know how to do an amazing amount of stuff with it to still be able to do really good stuff with it. In addition, in these kind of stranger times, it's got really good tools for conducting activities either synchronously or in person or at distance, but it can also be used very easily asynchronously. If you want to later, we're not going to deal with it right now, but there's the math project at UCI has regularly used for the last few years kind of an I can do checklist for like when we're doing some professional development with teachers. And that works pretty well when there's a wide variety of what people can do, so that people can say, yeah, oh, I can already do that, I can already do that. And then sometimes going down the checklist, you go, wow, I didn't even know Desmos could do that. So you hunt it down and figure that out. So that's a nice checklist of things that are capable of doing. I'm going to have you, so if we'll go on to slide 5, and this is the first time now we're going to jump directly into using Desmos. So I'd like everybody to click on that link so that you go to the graphing calculator. And so you'll have it open and you'll see there's not much there, but I'd like to call everybody over to Zoom then for a moment. Oh, could I, whoever's the host today, could you give me permission to share a screen?
Yes. I went ahead and made you the host.
Okay, excellent. So if you'll come back to Zoom, I'm going to share my screen and ask you to do some similar things. So gonna go share that screen. All right, so this is the home screen if you just type in Desmos, but what I asked you to do was click on a link that goes to the graphing calculator, so that would have taken you directly to here. A couple of really useful and interesting things that we can do here. I'm gonna, in a moment, ask you to put in a table and put in a couple of points. So I'm gonna just make up a couple of points that are close, say close to being aligned, but maybe aren't perfectly aligned. So 1, 3, let's go 3, 5, we'll go 5, 6, and let's say 6, 9. Okay, so when you look at that, you might be kind of suggestive of, it looks a little bit like a line. And then what I'm gonna ask you to do is to try and take a guess, y equals, and type in the equation of a line that you think comes pretty close to that. All right, so go ahead, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. I'm gonna ask you to go ahead, type in the equation of a line, so put in a number, so mx plus b, put in something in front of x, and then plus or minus something. Take some guesses to see if you can make something that works reasonably close to go through those points. I'll say those points one more time just in case you didn't enter them. I'll type them into chat there if you want to come back. 13355669. I'll type them in now. Oops, sorry, just clicked over to the wrong screen. So 133556 and 69. All right. Does anybody think they've got, if you've come up with an equation and you think it's reasonably close, go ahead and type it into chat here. What equation did you come up with, and are you reasonably happy with it? All right. Okay, so we've got a y equals x plus 3, 1.2. All right. Let's see. Jennifer, you're here, right? I see your equation, 3/4 x plus 2. Can you share your screen?
Sure. Wait, I don't know.
You do have permission. I'm just saying, do you know how down at the bottom of Zoom to go share screen?
I know how, but I didn't know if I had permission.
Yeah,
Okay.
I gave you permission, so you're good.
All right, thank you. That's my screen.
I see your screen.
I didn't
All right, you lost the equation. So why don't you type into line 2 your equation that you came up with?
So
No, you just have to type down at the bottom. See the next row underneath the table.
Oh, yeah,
there you go. So we'll get a chance to see how an equation gets typed in. Y equals 3 divided by 4. Oh, you're going to have to use the right arrow to pop up. There you go. X plus 2. All right, so we've got a line that's going reasonably close there. One thing that's kind of cool that we can do is it's going below all of the points, so we might want to adjust it up. But what I'm going to ask you to do is go to your 2, and instead of putting a 2, could you put a B in there? Okay, and then it's going to ask you, do you want a slider? So click the B for a slider. Okay, now slide the B, slide that slider. Maybe slide it a little. You can go a little higher if you want. You can choose now where you go, oh, does that look even better? Where are you headed with? All right. And do you think maybe we want to tip the line a little more?
Sure.
To try and get that other one? So why don't you change your 3/4 into an M? And add a slider for that one. Okay, now you can slide this so you can tip it a little more the way you like. So this is kind of cool that we can adjust it and try and kind of find something. So I'm going to ask everybody right now to do the same thing with that same data set. Write in y equals mx plus b, and then click to add 2 sliders and adjust it to where you think you're happiest now. Okay, so I'm going to let everybody do that for a moment, and then type in equation, come to chat, comment the think made the up with.
Can you repeat that last part? You kind of cut out a little bit.
I was saying, hopefully you typed in y equals msb, and you're sliding it back and forth to find a line that comes close to the 4 points, and then come back to chat and type in the equation of the line with your m and your b. So tell us what you found to be what you think is best. All right. Probably won't make it perfect, but you can be happy with it. So I'm seeing, hey, Nomer, nice to see you. Or at least I didn't know you were joining. I seeing the name. I didn't recognize the face just yet. Nice to see you. All right. Let's see. Anybody else find an equation that they think might work? That's somewhere near there. Now, how many of you, with a sign of a thumbs up, how many think you found the best fit line? The line that is the best possible fit? How many think you found a good fit line? Good fit? You found the best? Now, in statistics, the idea of a best fit line is a little complicated to actually find. It involves, technically it involves reducing the square of the distance of every point to the line. So it makes it so that the square of the amount that you're off is the smallest total. That's not easy to do by hand, but computers do it very quickly. So, hey, Nomer, why don't you share your screen for a moment, and we'll see what the best fit line is by showing what the tool is. So if you can go ahead and click share screen. All right, so now, so you've got it spread out a little bit. That looks pretty solid, what's going in there. In the next line below the B, can you click into there so that we can type? Below the B. I'm saying that the next line. Yeah, oh good, you're in there now. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask, so when you click into there, all right, we're gonna ask the computer, we're gonna ask Desmos to look at your table of values. To do that, you're going to type in Y1. So type in Y1, it tells it to look at the table. Now, for it to look for the best fit equation, that command is a tilde. You're going to have to hold Shift, find the tilde. It's in the top left of your keyboard. So hold Shift and find it up in the top left. It's usually one of the last keys at the top left of your keyboard. There you go. Now the equation we're going to get it to fit is mx1. So type in mx1 plus b. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. We've already decided what M and B are. So we can't reuse the letters. I've made a mistake here. We can't reuse them. So why don't you make it N and C? All right. Now the computer's come up with what it thinks, so that's in green now, the best fit line that would reduce the square of the distances. And so we weren't far off. It's saying the slope that is the best I can see on Nomer's screen is 1.07. So pretty close to 1.1. So if you want to pull it up just a little bit, you could try 1.1, and it says the Y value would probably be better off if it was 1.74 instead of 1.5, but that's about as close. So you had a really nice line. It was very close to what we would call the best fit line. But the computer found something that was just a touch better, which that's what we could expect computers should be able to do. So I just wanted to walk through some of the features that the graphing calculator has. Clearly, it's just a nice tool for graphing lines. You can graph parabolas. You can graph anything you want to. That tilde doesn't work just with lines. If you wanted to fit a parabola to something, you could type in y1 tilde ax squared plus bx plus c. And it would do the best it could to fit a parabola to your data set. Or maybe you think it's an exponential function. You could type y tilde a times b to the x1, and it would try to fit, it would find the best a and the b that would fit. Let me pause for a moment here and see, so this is just what I wanted to do, just a quick overview of this very basic tool, the graphing calculator, and some of the features it has in there. I really like the sliders and the ability to fit a line. Does anybody have any questions so far? You can either unmute if you want to ask a question, or you can type it into chat. All right, I'll try and keep an eye on chat, but sometimes when I'm doing other stuff, I won't. So if I'll give you a few more seconds. Oh, where's the tilde? That's a good question. It's a second, so you have to click Shift, but it's up high, usually on the key next to the 1 on most keyboards. It's usually to the left of the 1, and you have to press Shift. It's not absolutely fixed on every single keyboard, but that's generally where you can find it. All right, so let's move on, and we're going to move to the next. So if you go to the Google Slides that we had set up, if you go to slide 6, we're going to look at the geometry tool just to see what it's got available to us. So if you'll click on the geometry tool, and I'll give you just a moment to go ahead and draw a couple of things before I show you some features. So go ahead on slide 6, there's the link to the geometry tool. So take a moment. It starts off with a pretty blank screen, but you've got a construction area where you can make some things. Try drawing a few points, maybe draw a segment or a ray or a line to see what things look like. You can try measuring some segments or measuring an angle. All right, does anybody have something interesting maybe they'd like to show us? Anybody have anything uninteresting? We'll build it into something interesting.
I wouldn't mind.
Any volunteer to share your screen of a geometry?
I wouldn't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, certainly. So I kind of just drew a little arc here and whatever this polygon was. Kind of had fun with it.
Wow, that's quite a large polygon. So certainly an awful lot of sides there, but still very clearly a polygon. There's things that we can do with this if we wanted to. We can, let's just imagine something interesting that we could do with your polygon. Can you draw a vertical line? It doesn't have to be perfectly vertical, to the right of your polygon. Okay, and nice. Now, can you click on transform over on the left? See on the left up at the top, there's transform. Okay, and let's define a reflection. So click reflection, to define a reflection, you have to pick a line. So why don't you just pick the line that you drew? The big line over on the right. Yeah, so just select that. All right, now can you pick the center part of your polygon? There, you've just selected it. Now click apply. Okay, so now if you start, now go back over to construct. And you're on select, so grab one of the points of your polygon and move it a little bit. Maybe one of the lower points, so there, now we can see some of the things. There we go. You can pull something down low on the, yeah, at that piece, because we can see what's happening. What's kind of cool is whatever you do to the original, it's doing to the other side because it was transformed. So all of your transformations are available to you on a variety of different things. I just want to show one more feature, but with a much simpler polygon. Could you click the Polygon tool? And in that open space on the left, draw a triangle. Okay, you got to click the point again. There you go. So we've closed that off. Now, can you click the angle tool and pick three sides in a three vertices in a row on your triangle? Okay, that's how we measure that angle. Can you now measure the next one by doing 3 in a row, but going further around? And then can you measure the third angle? Okay, can you grab your select tool and pull your triangle so it's bigger so we can see all those measurements? Grab like a corner so that we can make it, now we can see them a little easier. All right, so just looking at this, what's something that we could ask students to do that often happens in middle school when we're like a big instructional idea we have to deal with about triangles? Can anybody think of something that we should know they should eventually learn about triangles?
I can say what do these 3 angles add up to?
Exactly. If you'll notice, as you start moving those, are they holding steady with what we know they should add up to? I can see the 1 and the 9 make 0 with 50, so that works. So if we ask them to notice some things, they might notice that when I make one angle bigger, the other ones get smaller. When one angles get smaller, the other ones have to get bigger. They compensate. It adds up to 180 degrees. But compared to doing it on paper with a protractor, there's some real strength to doing it. Because you're not stuck with a static figure, and on top of it, our measurements are a lot more accurate. So just kind of a cool tool to be able to work with and play around with, that you've got 2 layers of tools, one where you can make something and then one where you can transform things. So thanks so much for sharing your screen, David. All right. Anybody have any thoughts or ideas about geometry, the geometry tool? Anything come to mind? Any questions? See if anything comes up in chat.
So one of the things I do with paper is I have them carefully cut out the angles of the corners, the vertices, and put them together to show that it creates a half circle. And that's sort of, for a lot of my students, are like, wow, that's what 180 makes.
It's a really good activity, and I would encourage you to continue to do that. And then afterwards, then you can have them do this, and then the combination of the two will reinforce an idea. Because if you visit an idea once, the chances of it really sticking isn't that great. But when you see it show up several different times, it's much more powerful. What grade level are you working with there?
I work with high school special ed students,
Oh, okay.
usually with emotional disorders. So cognitively and academically, they're usually pretty close to grade level.
Okay. Excellent. So I would totally agree that when the standards talk about doing things with actual paper, with drawing it, with measuring it with the protractor, with doing that, that's still a good idea. This is a nice addition, although right now, if you're stuck at a place where you can't see them at all, this is at least a reasonable substitute. But when we get back to a more normal world, I appreciate the whole framework's point of view that there should be a balance of touching and drawing and measuring things and using electronic tools to do them. I'll have to admit, with the geometry stuff that I've done, I've been more heavy on the touching and doing and not so much with the electronic stuff, because there hasn't been a really good geometry tool for most of my career that was easy to use and quick to teach students to do. And this one now makes it very easy to be a little more balanced about those two things. So thanks for your comment. Anybody else? Any other thoughts or questions?
Yes, Jeff, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you measure the distance of things? For example, on on Nomar's project on his shape, his polygon that he had, can you measure how long it was from one section to another section?
Yes. Whenever you draw a segment, you can click on it, and in the construct side, if you click on a segment, one of the options is to label it with its length. So whenever you click on a segment, you can just click add a label, and the label is its length. So very convenient for that. It would be a nice way of, say, if you're trying to understand some things about, say, transformations, when you transform a shape, the distance of every point to its image is the same, because that's what transformations do. As opposed to when you rotate a shape, the distance of every point to the center is the same as its image to the center, because it's been rotated around that point, and it holds steady like that. So yeah, the measuring tool is pretty powerful. It's a pretty essential piece of the geometry software.
I have a question.
Sure.
I overlaid it or underlaid, I don't know. I put a grid, like there, if you go on the wrench, you could put a grid. So there's just grid lines. Is there a way to put a coordinate plane automatically, or?
No.
Okay.
That's not one of the options they've developed in there. So
You know,
you could draw your own coordinate plane, but no, you can't put one in there.
yeah, no, that's fine. The kids could draw it, but just when we're doing transformations in 8th grade, it would, I mean, even without a coordinate plane, it's nice where they can draw them and see how they transform. That's really cool.
Right. And so there's a combination here, I would say, of sometimes we might want to make a sketch and save it and send it to everybody so that it's got some features already on it. Let's see. David, can you share your screen one more time with that drawing that you had, if you still have it available, if you haven't gotten rid of it?
I do. I've just been like messing around with it.
Well, that's fine, because we're going to have you. I just want you to demonstrate how you can share that with everybody else in a very quick, easy way.
Okay.
All right. So, so actually, have you ever logged into Desmos before?
I have not. I was just looking over at
so then you're going to have to do that for us to be able to share it, but it won't take long. Just click login up in the top right. And the easiest way that is with Google, and then it will find you everything you've ever saved there. Can just All right. Now, can you go ahead and click on the Untitled up top to the left? All right, let's give it a name. Doesn't matter what. Couple of letters. Okay. And now, can you click on, where did it go? There should be a way to click on shapes, your name. Okay, that won't do. Oh, yeah, just go ahead and close this window. They've just made it easier now. So just copy your URL up at the top. Okay, did you copy it? All right, can you come back to chat and put it into our chat?
Okay.
All right, so if you want to open this up, you can now open up his thing. You're actually opening up a copy of it, so you won't change his item. So if I make some changes to it, it won't change what is saved for him. But this may not be that important with sharing this particular shape, but you might want to, as Jennifer was just saying, you might want to put in the grid, draw coordinate plane lines, and then draw a shape. And then you could share it to everybody and then say, start from here and transform this shape in some particular way. Reflect it over the y-axis, rotate it around the origin. You can have them do things to it, but not start and have them have to draw everything that you wanted them to start with. So it's a simple way to share out something. You can just copy your URL and send it off to them. So interesting, a little possibility. The same thing is true with what we did in the graphing calculator. Let's say you wrote some nice equations and you've got a table of values and you want your students to start with that. You can copy that and send it to them so that they start with the same page that you started with, which is much easier than like what I did today with asking you to all type in certain values into a table. All right, so those are your basic tools that are in effect always available. And I think we would be remiss if we only teach students about Desmos while doing a bigger classroom activity, because they won't always have a classroom activity to do something with. But these tools, the geometry tool and the graphing calculator, are available to them anytime they've got a calculator or an iPad or a computer with them. So I've noticed some students that if you teach them early about it, when they get to a challenging problem at some point, you might not even be saying, I'd like you to use Desmos, and they might be saying, I think I'd like to open up Desmos to do this. Is that okay? And I think that's an awesome thing when they start realizing this is a tool, it's always available to me, I can pop it open anytime I need to, and that makes for a more powerful student when they know how to, as the math practice says, to use tools strategically. So they're not always going to Desmos, but when they realize this would be helpful to me right now, I'm going to go use Desmos. That's something that isn't quite as available if you only teach them things about doing classroom activities that are really well structured. Now, that said, I still love classroom activities. I think those are an important function of Desmos, and so that's where we're going next and what we'll spend our last 40 minutes on. So if you'll go back to the Google Slides that we had and go down to slide 7. And on slide 7, I've just got a couple of notes about developing concepts while using Desmos. So it's something that we teach at the Math Project, the idea that big concepts are developed through experiences, multiple representations, and language use. You can directly give students a procedure. You can say, watch me, I'm gonna do this, now I want you to do it just like me. You can't give someone directly, I believe, give someone a new understanding of an idea. To some extent, they have to make it their own. They have to think about it a little bit. And the only way to tell if that's happening is if they're doing something, and often if they're saying something. So sometimes we need people to say something to each other. We need some people to do some things while they're talking to each other. And so that's what I think a classroom activity at its best does. So we're going to experience a classroom activity here right now. But one of the ways I've found helping some teachers at some variety of schools, if you're stuck at distance, students don't talk that much when there's 30 or 40 people in a Zoom chat. I mean, a Zoom room. It's hard to get lots of people to talk, even right now when we've only got, what, 12 of us here together. There's not I would say none of what we've had was a conversation so far. You don't have conversations with this many people, but you can with, say, 3 or 4 people together. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is we're all going to click on the link that says Toothpick Patterns 2. So you're going to open that up. And I'm going to, first I just want to check with a little thumbs up or a verbal, is everybody okay? Did it all pop open for everybody? All right. I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms for about 5 or 6 minutes where I'm going to ask you to talk while you're doing the slides. I want you to actually say, I'm drawing this on slide 1. Is that what you're drawing? Or I think there's this many. So I want you to actually talk a little bit. You also have permission to share screens. So if somebody's confused about what you're saying or you're confused about what they're saying, you feel free to, in your breakout room, say to them, could you share your screen for a moment so we can all look at what you're doing? All right. So I'm going to let you start that activity and work at your own pace to do the slides that you're doing. But before you get too far on it, what I'd like to ask you, if I thought I had, am I just co-host? It looks like, can I ask who, somebody's still on, who's the actual host?
Yes, so I'm the actual host if you want to move me back to host and ask me what you need me to do.
Well, because, I'm sorry, where are you? Who, you are?
Jessica, this is Jessica from CalTeach.
Oh, Jessica. Okay, let me find, oh, there you are. Because I can't set up breakout rooms here. For some reason, it won't let me set up breakout rooms, but I bet it lets you if you're the original host.
The webinar wasn't set up with breakout rooms. I didn't know you were gonna need that. Let me see if I can add them in right now.
We might not be able to.
Yeah, we can't because it already started.
Oh,
sorry about
that's a bummer. All right, so we're just gonna make it like a large breakout room. So I want you to, while you're doing this, feel free to put into chat or to just say out loud something that you're seeing on the slides as you're doing it. All right, so it's a large room, but I think it can still work with this many people. So give it a shot and work on a couple of slides. I will show you in a couple of minutes what I can see, where I can see what you guys are doing. But I'm going to let you work for a couple of minutes on those slides. I know it still feels like a large room. Anybody want to say anything a little bit about what they're noticing about their drawings or their slides so far? Let's just, can somebody unmute and tell me, what's the pattern of numbers you're noticing so far in pattern B? How does it start? And so some of you I can see are writing numbers next to your figure, which can help you later when you need to. The directions at the top of the slide does say, write the number of toothpicks next to each figure, which can make life easier in a moment or two. So anybody want to tell me, how many toothpicks do you see in the first figure of figure B?
Can I say something? It's like from the original figure, each square is adding 3 additional toothpicks to the original shape.
Okay, so each time you draw a new square, you're adding 3 more toothpicks?
Yes.
Okay. Is there an agreement on that? That each time you have to draw a new figure, you get 3 more toothpicks?
Yeah, I'm noticing the same thing.
Okay. So can somebody tell me how many toothpicks do you see in the first figure of pattern B?
7.
7.
All right, so we're in agreement there. Anybody want to say what's the whole string of numbers for pattern B? It goes 7, then what?
10, 13, 16.
Okay. So as you finish this stuff on slide 1, feel free to carry those numbers over into slide 2.
Oh.
Let's see, where are you? It's interesting. I'm just trying to figure something out. Is there someone whose name is different, who's Catherine Johnson on the Desmos activity, but is a different name over here? Oh, okay. I shared this with someone else, so that I think that's where that came from. No worries now. Actually, all right, so let's see if we're in agreement. In the green pattern, pattern A, how many toothpicks are there in the first figure?
6.
6? All right.
6.
Has anybody started to fill that table in on table 2, where it goes 1, 6, and then goes further on? Can somebody share that screen with us?
I think I can.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I did the first 2. That
All right.
one?
Let's see if we can get everybody to pause for a moment and come over and see if we're in agreement that the pattern for the green one, which is pattern A, starts off at 6, then goes 9, 12, 15, the way, that's Jennifer, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are we in agreement there? Can I get a few more people to say yes or no for the green pattern A? Okay, well, I see agrees
Yes.
going in the chat. All right, now, Jennifer, I'm going to ask you to think about this and say, do you see, look at the table with the green values, 1 to 6, 2 to 9, 3 to 12, 4 to 15. Can you think of any way where you can turn a 4 into a 15, a 3 into a 12, a 2 into a 9, something that would give us an equation that's how this is turning out?
I'm really bad at these. Well, I know it's, so there's 5, the difference is 5, the difference between X and Y is 5, then 7, then 9, then 11. So it's, the difference is increasing by 2.
Okay, so we can recognize it's not just about adding, right? So we can't just add something to the first one to get the next one and have it be a rule that works all the time. Do you suspect there might be a number that's going to be involved in this from the pattern you were drawing? Do you think there might be a number that was going on that might
Oh,
be?
yeah, I think, is that one, are they all adding 3 to the original? Is,
Okay, so there's something going on with a 3, okay?
yeah,
All right, is there a way you could use a 4 and a 3 to get close to 15?
you can multiply 4 times 3 and then add 3.
Does that work for the 3 also?
3 times 3 plus 3, yes.
How about for the 2?
2 times 3 plus 3, yes.
Okay, so in the line that says a of x equals, can you click into there?
Yes.
All right, what did you say you're doing each time?
What did I say?
You just told me what you did to each number.
3x plus 3. Is that
Is
what
there
I
a way
said?
you can tell by looking at your graph whether that was a good choice or not?
Yes, I did a good job.
Yes,
Because
and how
of,
do you know you did a good
oh,
job?
because all of the points are now connected in a line.
Sure, the line you drew matches every one of the data points you wanted, so that's looking pretty solid. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. So each of you, if you can now, I'm gonna have Jennifer stop sharing her screen, but I want you to then see if you can find something that matches the purple and then also matches the black, so that you can write an expression, each one for A, for B, and for C. All right, I'm going to ask you not to write the expression, but in chat, can you write, yes, I found B, or yes, I found C, if you've got any of those other equations, just to see if anybody found the other ones. All right, so we got some people that have found B. Some people have found both B and C. Now, I'm going to do something that's kind of annoying just to show you that it exists. You have the power as the teacher to stop the activity for everyone if you need their attention. So just letting you know that exists. I'll show you the teacher dashboard in just a moment, but one of the buttons on the teacher dashboard is a pause button. And then so if I really want your attention, I can click pause and I know you have to stop working. So that's a useful tool if you need to talk to people while they're working. I'll give you a couple of minutes to go ahead, finish slide 2, and you can go on to slide 3 if you want. For those of you who've gone on to slide 3, you'll notice when you type something in, you get a chance to see what 3 other people have written. So you can kind of compare what you wrote to what other people have written.
Jeff, does that mean you have to share first with the class to see it?
Yes. Now, and that's also under my control, is that when I set up the activity, I can get rid of that so they don't see it. Let's say if you wanted to use a particular activity as a quiz, you might not want everybody to see what everybody else has written. But if you're using it for a learning purpose, it might be a good idea that after they type something in and hit enter, they get to see something. Clearly, the first person doesn't see anything unless they come back to the slide again. Or they'll see it if they stay on the slide and then somebody else enters it. But the first person won't get to see anybody else's work or ideas. All right. Neat. I'm going to ask a particular person to show one thing, and then I'm going to ask some other people to just volunteer if they want to. Let's see. Where are you? Let's see. Preston, could I have you share your screen for a moment?
Okay, which slide do you want it to be on?
The one with the drawing and the tables. So that is slide 4.
Okay. So this one?
Yeah. All right. So what I want to show something that I saw one other person started to write it, but then didn't go all the way, and I wanted to just follow up on this. Can you grab the pen tool up there, and can you draw? On the far left, where you're going to draw on the table. So over to the left there, yeah, grab that one, and can you draw a little kind of, I guess it's like a greater than sign between 6 and 9, so it connects 6 and 9 in the green table. So on the right side, yeah, kind of there. And can you say, how much did that go up by?
It is pretty early because we had it rated for 2 days.
Oh,
Or you're just asking, so.
You write a number. You just write the number there.
3.
So put a little 3 there. Can you pick another little spot on that same table? Did that work also? Say the 12 and the 15? Are you noticing that? Is that true for every little interval?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a common tool that we would have students find. And so we could look and say, what does that tell me about the rate of change in each one of these tables? Now we can read what you just said. You can actually read what you wrote.
So I said the y values are changing at the same rate, 3, and the x values are changing by 1. So the y's rise 3 and the x's run 1.
Excellent. So sometimes we want to just make clear that multiple representation, the idea of slope. So you've got it in words, but now we've got it also in the table. Can you click to your next slide? And now say between your first 2 green dots, can you draw a triangle that goes across and then up? See how steady your hand is? Oh, pretty good. Okay, now can you label it with the numbers? So a big idea of conceptual learning is that when you connect all of your multiple representations, it makes more sense in the long run and you are able to hold on to it better. So in this case, we've got a slope triangle with a graph labeled 3 and 1. And in the one before, we had a table where we can see with the little carrots that it's going up by 3 each time in the y value, but only 1 in the x values. And we can connect that all back to what somebody said earlier, that each time you try and build on an extra square, you're putting on 3 more toothpicks. So we're just connecting all of those. Thanks. So we can have, you can stop sharing there. All right, so I'm just going to show you one more thing about, so that you can see with Desmos. And then we'll see what kind of questions there are, and then we'll choose what we do next, because we're not going to be able to do everything that I thought maybe we could have gotten done, but that's life. That's usually what happens in most classrooms. Better to be prepared with a little extra than to not have enough. So let me show you what I can see. Now, right now, I can see all you guys in here. If I wanted to show this to an entire class, I might click anonymize. If I click anonymize, then it doesn't show everybody's real name. It just shows a fake made up name. It's supposed to make up names that are famous mathematicians. But how many famous mathematicians can you name? I see Aristotle there. That's a famous mathematician. I think that's Laplace, which is a famous guy in calculus. I'm not sure what Ruth Gonzalez has done. But so when you're stretching to have 12 famous mathematicians, sometimes they're not too famous. So I'd show you what these tools are when you're running a classroom activity. Like I showed you, there's a pause button. Did you feel that the activity had, like, the first 3 screens were kind of a mini activity all by themselves? Does that kind of make sense? They were kind of felt like a mini activity. If I only wanted to do the first 3 screens, I could have set up pacing so that we only go from slides 1 to 3. And then you would never even get to see 4, 5, and 6. So if I set it that way, you would be stuck on slides 1 to 3. I can get rid of that pacing and let you back access to all of those. let me see one other. So if I want to see what one person in particular has done, I can click on their dot and I can see what they wrote. I can see the equations that they wrote. And know if I want to give them some help. If for example, it's not the fact that this person got this wrong, but let's say if they had, well, right now I can just send a feedback that says, nice job with your equations. And if I send it to you, somebody just got that message, whoever this is, but I've got it anonymized, so I can't tell who I just sent it to. So just sent that to someone. So you can send a message to someone if you need to. You can also see in general where everybody is. I can tell there's one person on slide 2, 4 people on slide 3, 2 people there, and 2 people on slide 5. Nobody's gotten to slide 6 or 7 yet. So just some cool work of what you can see while you're doing a classroom activity. It makes for a pretty powerful ability to run those things. All right. I guess one important thing I would want to do before we go anywhere else is if you wanted to run this activity with your class. Let's see, can I have one more volunteer who hasn't shared their screen yet? Get you involved. Any volunteer that hasn't? Because I just want you to show you how.
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead, Jerry. Can you share your screen? And I want to use you to show how you would set up an activity. All right, can you find your Google Slides that we were working on? Thanks. Can you go down 2 more slides? Keep going, go another one. Keep going. There's going to be a place with all the links. I'm not looking at mine right now. Keep going another slide down. It looks like.
That's as far as let me go to slide 9.
Oh, that's right. Let me see. Where did I?
Did you say you wanted me to go to the build an activity?
I wanted to make sure that I shared with you the so that you can use these on your own, because these are custom ones that we've made. Oh, I'm sorry. I put it on slide 7. I forgot where I put it. So go back to slide 7. Go to the linear functions collection. Okay, what I'm going to have you do right now, so when anybody who opens this up from slide 7, this is a whole set of activities that are good for linear functions. Jerry, can you click add collection up at the top? Okay, now you never have to have that link again, because if you click on your collections on the left, it's there now. So now you've got that anytime you want it. So click on that. All right, can you go down to toothpick patterns 2? I just want to show people how you can do this. Now, if you wanted to assign this to your classroom, you can't use the link that I gave you because it goes to the thing that I control as a teacher. So you would use assign. And do you use Google Classroom?
Yeah, I actually use Desmos for my classrooms.
Oh, excellent. So then you're quick on showing this. So you could use it with Desmos, with Google Classroom to assign it directly there. Or if you wanted a single session code, you could pull down one more and open that up, and then you can view the dashboard and send somebody the link. So if you click on view dashboard, if you copy that, all right, and then you could put that into chat the way I did, or you could link it to something and you could get somebody to, so now if everybody wanted to go start this activity over, but be in Jerry's classroom, you could do that there. But I wanted to show you, it's a fairly quick thing to be able to do that. So thanks. I guess while we're here, let's just take a minute or two to take a look at making an activity. So if you could close that, the X on that, and go back to Desmos with the big D up there and go to custom.
Oh, you're going to see all my customs.
Oh, so you make a lot of activities already.
Yeah, I came for the computational layer if you do that, but
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well, I guess we can do a brief little bit of it, but we're not going to get much in a couple of minutes. So sorry. This is all kind of old stuff that you know how to do.
that's okay.
But let's just show them for a moment how to create an activity. So go to like a new activity.
So yeah, top right.
Top right. You give it a name, a little testing, make something up. And so you've now got the ability to drag pieces onto an activity and put those in. Just a thought, Jerry, if you do want to go look at what was done with, so I did use a decent amount of computational layer. Well, I didn't use much of it there, but there is quite a bit in the Burn Baby Burn activity if you want to click on that link, because that one, I had to use it to carry dots forward and things. So this is where we can add in pieces. Let's just make a very quick, easy one. Can you put in a sketch and a table? And put in a title up at the title, say something that would match in this category of linear functions. Fill in the table and make a graph. For y equals 3x plus 2. And then in the table, you can just go ahead and put in x and y. And in the 3 dots, you'll have to allow students to add rows. And then over in the graph, click on the background. And let's put it in the graph. And I guess the standard window should be just fine for that. And we can just take a look at the preview if you want in the top right, and we can see if we're happy. This is what a student would be able to do. I always try and do it the way a student would before I actually send it out to them. So like I often catch myself where I forgot to let them make more rows in a table, which is annoying for them if you tell them to make a bunch of points and they can't. So you could put in some values for x, like put in say 0, 1, 2. And this one would force them to come up with it. It's not creating it, so they'd have to come up with some numbers. So that would be 5 and 7. And then they could grab the little drawing tool and drop some points into the graph.
I think I'm doing this right.
Looks good. And so what you're drawing on here, just when you're in the preview mode, isn't going to be there for students. So it's just us trying it out. So now we can close this window and say, yeah, we're pretty happy with that. And if you were done with it, you could click publish. And so we should just show them that, you know, up in the top right, you've got to publish it. And why don't you just copy that code and put it back in our chat? And we could show people that in a matter of 3 minutes, we've made a one slide activity, and students can get to it, and we could find out what they know about being able to graph a linear equation. So pretty quick and easy. Thanks so much, Jerry. Oh, look, you've got 2 students already signing up for you to fill in your slides. Very neat. Thanks. If you, there you go. So I know we're running out of time here. I just want to comment on a couple other things. So I'm going to share the screen just to talk a little bit more from the big picture here. If you want to take a look, we've developed in the math project a handful of activities that are about transformations and congruence. So that's our more recent stuff. The downside of the geometry tool being so new to Desmos is they don't have very many hardly any at all classroom activities that are really taking advantage of the power of their geometry tool. So we've made up a few of them there. One of them is directly linked as a student link here. So if you want to act as a student, you can click on congruent figures and run that one. If instead you want to see our collection of activities, that's where you could find that on the geometry collection. And let's just, I'm gonna flip down to the last one. And just to summarize, this last slide summarizes the process by which to make your own activity. You click on custom, you build and add the screens. I would really recommend when you do this, don't aim to build a 15 slide activity. It's not the best place to start. Just build a 1 or 2 or 3 slide activity that checks a particular idea. Use it as a quick start to a class or an end to a class, or a little bit of practice in the middle when you just need to go over something that's older that people might know. So it's a good way to break up a session where we all know students really don't do well for 40 or 50 minutes in a row doing the same thing over and over. So a short Desmos activity with 2 or 3 slides can make things much more powerful. There's a link here to Desmos has quite a bit of tutorials, although the Desmos it's fairly limited on the tutorials about doing the computational layer so far. But so that's a kind of the, when I said there's a low floor but high ceiling to working with geometry, working with Desmos, that's what I was talking about. I guess I'll show you one last thing. The other activity that I linked here was Burn Baby Burn. I'm just gonna sign into that. This one, a school that we were working with is stuck being still fully online, and they're doing some linear things. And one nice activity is to burn a class candle in a classroom. But when you're burning a candle, that's hard to do online, but we can, this is a video of a candle being burned, and I can, we can watch it. If I wanted to, I can just drag and go to any point. What do you notice about the candle height? Well, it went back up, but as the time goes on, any thoughts?
Yeah, the candle height decreases.
Okay, so a question might be, what kind of pattern is it going in? So what you're asked to do in this activity is to put some data points in here on time in minutes. So maybe half a minute, so like 0.5, 1 minute, 1.5. You could do 1 1/4 minutes if you know how many seconds that is. So you can fill that in. But it's not easy for students because you have to decide, where am I measuring my candle to? Am I going to measure it to the, do I call the top of the flame? Do I call it the top of the wick? Do I call it the top of the wax? So there's some choices you have to make, and you make this, you make your data point. Then on the next slide, this is where the computation layer happens. If you put something on the first slide, it will show up here on the second one because I've put it in so that it will do that. And then you make a prediction about where the candle will be after 8 minutes. And then you get another little video to show what happened between 5 and 8 minutes. And then you try and make those points get added to your graph. You try and fit an equation to it. And eventually you try and predict where it burns out. And then you get the little last bit of the candle to see what happens when it burns out. So it's complicated because it uses messy data, but it is kind of a fun activity. Okay, so yeah, I totally agree with what Jerry just wrote in there. It's only, Jerry, do you know when it happened? I only noticed it about 3 or 4 months ago that it was available. No, I have to say like 5, 6 months ago. It seemed to
Oh,
come up where
only a month for me. Like I
Okay.
was looking up how to do this distance learning stuff, and I discovered this, and I was like, oh, I'm sold.
Yeah. This was I discovered it because one of my UCI students doing the credential program, the 5th-year program, wrote an activity with it, and I was like, "How'd you do that?" And he was just like, "Oh, you can write your own code in there." But that's a higher level of use, but it's powerful and lets you do a variety of different things. It's not your first attempt at using Desmos or your second or third, but over time, it really makes for a lot of extra things that you can do. I hope this helps, and if you're working at a middle school or a high school, you almost always have to deal with some linear functions and some geometry, so you got a few activities that could come in handy there. And more importantly, hopefully you've seen some of the power of Desmos and the ability to share it with students and to move things around and empower them to do a variety of different things. So it's a pretty powerful tool. So.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a great webinar. I learned a ton, but we would like to ask all of our participants who are still online if you could take 2 minutes to complete a survey. This helps us get some feedback from today's webinar, and then also lets us know what you want to see in the future. Again, thank you all for joining us. Please also check the other link that I'm about to put on the chat. So this is the link where you can find information about our future webinars, and then also the link where you will find the recording of tonight's webinar tomorrow at some point. But I'll stick around if anyone has any questions, but everyone have a good night.